So we discussed the fact that all sentient beings want happiness, do not want suffering, right? But the difference between human beings and other sentient beings is that human beings have this wonderful capacity to judge, analyze, discriminate, and examine things. Most of the animals do not have that. I also mentioned that intelligence that we have as a human being is very unique compared to many other animals. But this intelligence itself is just a given potential, neither positive nor negative. It is up to us whether we use it constructively or destructively. The fact that intelligence is important is recognized in our society. Therefore, there is a lot of emphasis on education. Everybody has to go to school, universities as much as possible, right? There is improving the intelligence. We call going to school, going to university, receiving education. But I really don't know what is the real meaning of education. Because most of us improve our literacy, not necessarily education. Education means educating both the head and the heart. In our modern schools, there is only education of the head. Dimag hai, dil nahi hai. No education of the heart. This is very, very clear. I go to different places giving talks. Several years back, I was invited to give a talk to a quite well-off school in Mumbai. So I went there, the room was full of young people. Then I hesitated. Are they going to listen to me? They're all speak fluent Hindi, English, modern educated. And then will they listen to me? Somebody with this clumsy cloth, ugly looking fellow, as if came from other planet. But what really surprised me was when I started speaking, they were all listening to me as if I am telling them a story which they have never heard before. This is a clear indication that these subjects on value, on ethics, on emotional regulation, on education, it looks like it is not taught properly in those schools. So that's why His Holiness the Dalai Lama is these days emphasizing and working very hard to make secular ethics available in all the schools and universities. And we have we had participated in many programs in the past, and I am one of the person where His Holiness asked me to look after that. So we have number of activities in the next few months also in different, like in Delhi, Mumbai and so forth. So what I'm really saying is, human beings have this great human intelligence, capacity to judge between what is right, what is wrong. But the heart is missing. सिर बहुत बड़ा है लेकिन दिल नहीं. You have a big head, and head, you see, human beings probably has one of the biggest brain. Biggest brain. And in fact, according to the scientific history, it says the brain is becoming bigger and bigger because we use it so much. The more you use it, the more it will become active or enlarged and so forth. And it is also very surprising that in the case of human children, babies, after the birth, it takes around 6 months just to lift their head. Other animals, immediately after birth, they start walking, you see. It's really surprising. Human beings, just to take the head is so difficult. And once they're able to lift their head, then start creating all problems. Sometimes it looks like that. Anyway, right? Then human beings have this another very unique feature of having the hands free. No other animals. They have to use all the 4 limbs. Again, in the science, according to the story, it says that it took a long time for human beings to be able to walk just on the 2 feet, They just did like this. They wanted to stand up. Did this so many times, and then finally they were able to walk erect with hands free, because of which we are able to now invent, create, and do so many things with the hands free. So we have very special features as a human being. So what I'm really trying to say is, we have this wonderful human intelligence, and a kind of education, good or bad, I don't know, kind of education is given all over the world. But heart is missing, as I said. Meaning that the other more important part, which is disciplining the mind, regulating the emotions, as we say today, that part is missing. Now people are realizing it slowly. Now imagine you have this wonderful brain which doesn't have any idea about the importance of the value, ethics, control of the negative emotions. And then with this smart brain is given access to these very sophisticated weapons. What happened in America, the destruction of the Twin Towers. Ninth November, September. 11th September. That destruction was done by just 1 or 2 people using the machine. Now there's so much talk about this artificial intelligence. So unless we tame our mind, we have a sense of direction, meaning that unless we have this thinking of benefiting others as the core meaning of human life, if that is not there, and then if you are given with all these toys called weapons, we are already seeing North Korea is now threatening that there will be nuclear war and a lot of destruction. They are ready to do that, you see. And all the so-called big powers have that destructive nuclear weapon. Extremely dangerous and risky. So all this clearly shows that if you don't realize the meaning of our existence, then you can play with all these things. Life is just for having artificial fun and play. Nobody caring about each other. Imagine. So that's why the Buddhist practice becomes not only relevant, but also extremely important. So for all of us, especially the young Tibetans, it is important that when you study Buddhism, you should also study the works of other great people. What are they saying on the same topic? What is their view on the same topic? For example, I brought this piece, which I am very fond of, a piece by Einstein, with the different versions. He uses different language, but he talks about impermanence. He talks about interdependent origination. He talks about having happiness through cooperation. He talks about the importance of leading a simple life. Einstein is somebody who has witnessed 2 world wars. Even after that, he was optimistic. He said, I still believe in the fundamental goodness of human beings. And he encouraged everybody to do that, you see. I read many of his books, but there are so many beautiful quotations by him. Like, for example, if probably I will not read the whole thing, it's really, really very attractive. If you are interested, I'll send it to you. He says, how strange, and the topic of this essay, which you can probably find it easily, the world as I see it. How strange is the lot of us mortals. Mortals means impermanent human beings. How strange is the lot, the fate of us, the impermanent human beings. Each of us is here for a brief sojourn. Each of us is here for a brief sojourn, impermanent. We are not going to live here forever. For what purpose are we here? He knows not. We don't know what is the purpose. Do we know why we are here? And this reminded me the saying of someone else who says, we do not know from where we came from. We do not know how long we are going to live here. We know that one day we will die. And after that death, where we will go, nobody knows. So you know nothing. So how can you remain so comfortable? You have no idea from where you came from. You have no idea from where you are going. So that's why the Buddhist teaching is saying, since you are going to go, make preparations. Since you are a human being, not a cow, not a dog, things like that, not a plant, therefore it is a clear indication that in the past you did something good. Because nothing comes without causes and conditions. So therefore, it is important to reflect, to explore. For what purpose he knows not. Though he sometimes thinks he senses it, sometimes he thinks, yes, I know it, but you don't really know. But without deeper reflection, one knows one thing. One knows one thing. That is, but without deeper reflection, one knows from daily life that one exists for other people. First of all, for those upon whose smiles and well-being our own happiness is wholly dependent, like your relatives, friends, and so forth. And then you are also dependent for those many which you don't know, unknown to us, to whose destinies we are bound by the ties of compassion, sympathy. Therefore he says, 100 times every day, Einstein says, 100 times, look at this, 100 times every day I remind myself that my inner and outer life are based on the labors, hard works of other people. Imagine, this is teaching. If you are somebody who has that idea, then you can't waste anything. Like how much food we waste. If you imagine not only that you paid money, if you take the examples of farmers, how much they have toiled in the heat of the sun, how much the laborers has been, breaking their bones, how much they have worked. When you realize this, then you will be very frugal. You will not waste anything. So thinkers like him, they know all this, you see. 100 times every day, 6 session Guru Yoga practice. We talk about 6 session, he says 100 times. 100 times every day I remind myself that my inner and outer life are based on the labors of other men, living and dead. And that I must exert myself in order to give in the same measure as I have received, and I am still receiving. Imagine. And then he says how he lived his life. I have never looked upon ease and happiness. I have never looked upon ease and happiness as ends in themselves. This critical basis I call the ideal of Pigstree or Pigstree. I don't know how to pronounce this, where the pigs live. How do you pronounce this? Pigstree. Pigstree. Okay, Pigstree. Ranchipur Devo de Kibotina Samladandi Pakpa Pakzang la Kiboyi Samana Hiredi Cho Zigme Singe. And then what is his ideal? The ideals that have lighted my way, and time after time have given me new courage to face life cheerfully, have been kindness, beauty, and truth. Kindness. Without the sense of kinship, that means kindness, he is explaining kindness. Without the sense of kinship with men of like mind, without the occupation with the objective world, when you are unable to, beauty means when you are unable to, you should appreciate things around you. And without the occupation with the objective world, when you are unable to see them, as beautiful. And then the truth, which is not easy to achieve, the eternally unattainable in the field of art and scientific endeavors. If these things are not there, then life would seem empty to me. The tried objects of human efforts. The tried objects of human efforts, possession, outward success, luxury, have always seemed to me contemptible. Looks like he is a Buddhist. You see, these are not his main object. Possession, outward success, luxury. Once Einstein was to give a big talk. Then the time was approaching, and his wife looked for him, and then he was still working in his not very clean pajama. Then his wife said, "Einstein, it's your time it's your time now to go for the talk. You have still not changed your clothes." Einstein laughed and said, "I suppose people are coming to listen to me and not to look at my pajama." See, somebody who is really knows what is important, what is not important. So I don't want to read the whole thing. So you can read it if you like next time. So what I'm trying to say is, of late I have been collecting a lot of wisdoms from different people. Not only to support the Buddhist idea, but to tell people, look, same everywhere. It's not just Buddhism. This is the reality. And therefore it is important for you to pay attention to this reality and change your life. So that's what I'm trying to drive at. So let us read the next verse. Next verse is meditation on ultimate bodhicitta. So you know the meaning of conventional bodhicitta or bodhicitta, as I've already explained. Bodhicitta means the wish to become Buddha for the benefit of all sentient beings. Now here we are talking about ultimate bodhicitta. Ultimate bodhicitta is not bodhicitta. Ultimate bodhicitta means wisdom, understanding, emptiness. It's also called ultimate bodhicitta because this mind also helps you become Buddha, become enlightened. Okay, so you should know this. Conventional bodhicitta is equal to bodhicitta. Ultimate bodhicitta is not bodhicitta. It's wisdom, understanding, emptiness. So this is what is explained in the next verse. So in this verse he says, the way things appear are just perceptions of the mind. The mind itself is from beginningless time free from fabrications. Understanding this and not mentally clinging to the subject and object traces is a bodhisattva practice. The way things appear, the way things appear means it may be a human being, it may be a book, it may be a house, whatever appears to your mind, these are just perceptions of your mind. Just perceptions of your mind does not mean they are not there. They are there, but they do not exist as you think. They exist but do not exist independently, inherently, objectively. The way things appear are just perceptions of the mind because they do not have inherent independent existence as you thought. Let us have fun in order to get some idea about this ultimate bodhicitta. Things exist, right? Things exist. You are existing, you are listening to me, I am existing, I am speaking. So things exist, table is here, everything. Things exist, right? Say yes, please. Yes. Why saying yes is so costly? So things exist. Yes. Exist, okay, confirmed. Things exist, but do not exist independently, inherently, objectively, intrinsically. Things exist, but do not exist independently. Clear? Why we need to make this distinction? Because ordinarily, whenever we perceive something existing, we tend to see that as exist, not only existing, but existing independently. For example, if you fancy something, if you like something, let us say a new car, Mercedes car or something, which you have been thinking that I should have one. Then because of your mental projection, as and when you think that this car, I want this car, and it's so beautiful, it has objective existence, as soon as you start thinking, trouble starts. First of all, to buy that Mercedes car, you don't have enough money, but you want that Mercedes car. So in order to have that, you have to work like a donkey. You collect a little bit money and then go to the shop and again start window shopping, Is it still there, Then you work like hard. I mean, this is one example. With everything we do like that. Then work. Then finally you pay the money, you have the Mercedes car. Now the Mercedes car looks even more beautiful. It's the same car that's in the shop. But because now you possess it, this is mine, so good, wonderful. But believe me, there is a honeymoon period. That does not last very long, because very soon you will see the truth. Right? So first few days I call it honeymoon period, whether it's marriage or car or whatever. Then you're over the board, right? So during this first few days, you don't want anybody even touch it. You cover it, you see, make sure that it doesn't gather dust and that nobody scratches it. And I once read a story in this connection. I have been sharing this many times. There's a story of somebody who bought such a car. And like anybody, he was very happy and doesn't want anybody to touch it. But he is a small girl child, small child. So this little girl, because of her innocence, she goes and then writes something. Then father, because he has so much fondness for their car, just pushes her hardly. And then the girl falls down and she dies. This is the story, but for me, very convincing story. So now, because the little girl died, of course he was shocked, what did I do, And then what the only thing he can do is to find out what this little girl has written on the car. And to his great dismay, he finds that the little girl has written there, "Papa, I love you." This is a story, but very touching. So because of this grasping, because of this ignorance, you can do great damage, not only to other people, but even to those who you love dearly. Because you are blind. As I told you earlier, all these negative emotions will make you blind. You see? But then, as I said, when the honeymoon period is over, then you see, actually the color is not the best. Because now you see in the shop another car, better color, or new model, or whatever, you see. Oh, I should not have bought this. I mean, this happens even when you go for a dinner. You order something, and then you thought it's okay. But when you see someone else has ordered something, oh, I should have ordered that one. The grass is always greener on the other side. This is because of not being able to understand the way things are, understand the reality. Right? So therefore, that is why he is saying, whatever appears are just perception, how you see things. They have only a conventional existence. They don't have inherent independent existence. If you perceive things as having inherent existence, then you will have one section of sentient beings which you love, which you call as your friend, and you are obsessed with that. This is my brother, this is my sister, this is my husband, this is my wife, and you get obsessed with that. Then for those people, how much you have to work, this is one story. Then another story is that those people who you don't like, oh, they are not only bad, but horrible, 100% negative. How can I ever have negotiation, dialogue with His Holiness, with my enemy? His Holiness Dalai Lama, like saying, let us have negotiation and dialogue with Chinese leaders. Person like me thinks, Your Holiness, how can you have this negotiation and dialogue with this ignorant, stupid, short-sighted, Chinese leaders? Really? We think like this, you see. But the reality is, yes, even Chinese leaders, in one way they are very arrogant, very bad, but there are other good points also. We have to accept that, you see. They have their friends, relatives who admire them, So therefore, if you are able to see that everything is relative, everything has a conventional existence. So this topic is very important, deep, and very, very, very profound. Like for example, this microphone that I am using. If today, if I say that I am now speaking, now I will speak through the elephant, because you all call this microphone, but I start calling this elephant. Then I say, okay, now I am speaking through the elephant. Then you will say, Geshe Lhakdor is now out of his mind. Because you have all agreed to call it microphone, and it works. But right in the beginning, before you gave this name microphone, if you had given a name called elephant, today there will be no problem if I say I'll speak through the elephant. Just designation. How you become Dolma, how you become karma, just name, designation, you see. There's not much, substance. I mean, even look at this body, which looks like tolerable or okay. But if you see through a microscope, it's frightening. It's frightening. It's just bubbles. Now the advantage of seeing that is this will reduce your arrogance. This will help you take more care of yourself. You are not as solid as you think. You are very fragile. Therefore, you should take special care. Right? So there's a lot of meaning. Once you understand this meaning of emptiness, it reinforces, strengthens the positive emotions, positive practices, and it weakens and removes the negative emotions. So therefore, the way things appear are just perceptions of the mind. And then, what about the mind? The way things are just perceptions of the mind, they do not have inherent existence. Okay, I understood this. Then what about the mind? So this is answered by saying that the mind itself is like anything, any other object, from beginningless time, free of fabrications. Fabrication means when things do not have inherent existence. If we say it exists inherently, this is a fabrication, exaggeration. So just like the objects, the subjective mind also do not have inherent existence. Because the mind is changing all the time, fleeting all the time, it's dependent on causes and conditions, things like that. So understanding this, once you understand the mind and its object, none of these have inherent existence. And through that, not mentally clinging to the subject and object traces means, if you don't cling to the subjective mind and don't cling to the object, traces means traces of having inherent existence. If you don't go after both the subject and object having any traces of inherent independent existence, then this is called meditation on ultimate bodhicitta, meditation on shunyata. Right? So this kind of meditation will really reduce grasping to yourself. Fight against the self-cherishing attitude. Fight against ignorance. So this is what you do during the meditative session. Of course, you can't remain in meditative sessions. You have to get up, you have to do your work, then you have the post-meditative session. So during the post-meditative session, how should you practice? This is explained in the next verse. Now you have, when you were in the meditative session, you looked great. Both the subject and object have no inherent existence, you looked great. But when you get up from the meditation seat and go and join the rest of the world and see beautiful things, wonderful things, then again attachment. See your enemy and again hatred, that arises. Right? It's very easy to get influenced by the same negative emotions because we are strongly habituated with it. When I was studying in the Institute of Buddhist Dialectics, especially before I was a translator to His Holiness, so when I go and attend to His Holiness teaching with my scripture, I take notes and then I feel so moved that now I will really do practice. Rigorous practice, I'll do that. That comes in my mind. But you know how long it lasts? Until to the door of the temple. When the teaching finishes, crosses the door of the temple and then join the rest of the flock, people, it really looks like welcome back to the familiar world. Welcome back to the same familiar world. You see? So unless you repeatedly remind yourself, repeatedly practice, it's not going to come easily. You see, getting habituated with the positive emotions, that is called habituation. But we are addicted to many other bad things. Addicted, small, superficial, insignificant things. We are very strongly habituated with that. So it's very difficult to give that up. So therefore, you have to be very careful during the post-meditative session. When one encounters attractive objects, attractive sentient beings, attractive human beings, attractive objects, whatever, even though they appear beautiful, you should see them like a colorful rainbow in the summer. The colorful rainbow in the summer, at a distance it looks great. But because it looks beautiful at a distance, if you say, oh, this is so beautiful, I'm going to catch them. Can you catch them? People can't really Rakaruchik kindly Kijalu China and Jajutu. Today in a Kajima, the Hinjutu Marwa, because the nearer you reach, the rainbow disappears. So it's like that, you see, we fancy something, it looks attractive, great, but the closer you go, you will see the reality. You see? So there is not worth developing that attachment. Like a colorful rainbow in the summer, seeing them as not truly existing, and therefore abandon your attachment, is a bodhisattva practice. Similarly, when you encounter a repulsive object, next verse says, all kinds of sufferings, for example, sufferings you don't want, sufferings of any kind. So when you encounter those sufferings, normally either we get angry, or we get frustrated, or we get discouraged. So he is saying that don't do that. All kinds of sufferings are similar to the death of a child in a dream. When you are sleeping, you get a dream of giving birth to a child. And then you again get a dream that the child dies. You are still dreaming and you have a lot of suffering now in the dream. Oh, my child died. You even cry, You are experiencing that because you are not awake. You are dreaming. Therefore you are suffering. But when you wake up, thank God, it's just a dream. You see? So similarly, all the sufferings that we are experiencing in the ordinary world is because we are not awake. to enlightenment, to the truth, to the wisdom, understanding, emptiness. So therefore we are unnecessarily suffering because of attachment, obsession with things. Oh, this is object of my happiness. This is object of my permanent peace. And you get obsessed and stuck with that. And you forget bodhicitta, conventional bodhicitta, ultimate bodhicitta. Reality you forget. And then you suffer. But when you wake up and become like Buddha or even the higher bodhisattvas, then many of these things you don't have to suffer, which are primarily your mental projections. Sanji chomdendela sang ye sigdwa sang ye sang sona ni sang desor. Hibuji nyen tabe ni sang sha sigdwa. De sang da nyomo be ni do de sang. Ni sang sa inza na milam dukja de tangi yomarta. Tanga do milam dukja tang de. Ni sang yomarwa. Nyomo be ni sang yo. We are sleeping with ignorance, not awake. Therefore we are suffering. So much of the sufferings that we experience in our regular world is unnecessary suffering. They are our own creation. Much of the suffering is our own creation, our own projection. Like even if somebody is looking at me, for example, this is just a silly example. If somebody is looking at me, face not so nice, looking at me, and then reciting Tara mantra, Om Tare Tu Tare Tu, so on, but a little bit angry towards me kind of face. Because I'm not able to hear what she is reciting, I might think that, oh, he's saying something bad against me. Whereas he is reciting mantra. So you project things, you see. You project things and then create suspicion, unhappiness. So much of our problem, 60-70% of suffering that we experience is not even suffering, it is our projection. Then there are certain percentage of suffering which are suffering but changeable suffering. If you make the attempt, you can change it. Then there are certain small percentage of suffering which is stubborn suffering. I call them stubborn suffering, which you can't change it. So why waste time on that? You should say, go hell with it, I have many other things to do. For example, if I don't have this left hand, there's no point, I just keep on thinking how unfortunate I am for the rest of my life, So instead of thinking about this missing hand, think about this hand, right hand, which is the good one, better one, which does the writing or lifting things. So it's your mental perspective. Much is your mental perspective. So I like this verse very much. All kinds of sufferings are similar to the death of a child in a dream. By grasping the mistaken perceptions as true, exhausts you. I like this word. By grasping the mistaken exceptions as true, exhausts you. Tuba chigla tuba yimba hamagone de dembar sung de dugyong re sing ndo chong to di ye sik de koy no te chana samlo tang tang no re dugyong re chana thang che jung ne sing ndo ko to di sik na wo hi to di dungen na so melam phushi da tuna dembar sung me roba tuba ngone mayin ba chigla ngone sung ne ene so thang che jung re ta thang che do depression, loneliness ta ka je go do so re se go re. By grasping the mistaken perception as true, exhausts you. You have created this exhaustion by yourself because you are unable to see the truth as true. Instead, you misconceived it. It is the misconception of reality which brings suffering, which makes you tired. Hence, when you encounter unfavorable conditions, misfortunes, troubles, when you encounter those things, seeing them as misperceptions is a bodhisattva practice. Misperceptions means that they do not have. This means if you encounter unfavorable conditions, if you see these unfavorable conditions as having inherent independent existence, that's misperception. Chenswa. Chitang mitim bekenda Yorwa the misperception marwa. Unfavorable conditions are there. So seeing unfavorable conditions as unfavorable conditions, that is not misperception. So what he is saying is that when you encounter unfavorable conditions, if you see them, see these unfavorable conditions as unchanging, inherent exist, that is misperception. If that is true, then you are doomed to death. There is nothing you can do. So what he is saying is, yes, you have encountered unfavorable conditions, but they do not have inherent independent existence, meaning you can change it. You can change it. Number one, it is your perception, how you see it. And also you can change it. They do not have inherent independent existence. So that is the meaning of seeing them as misperceptions. That's a Bodhisattva practice. Next verse says, those desiring enlightenment have to give up even their bodies. Hence, what need is there to talk about material wealth? So engaging in... So now we have basically spoken about two things, cultivation of bodhicitta. Now when we talk about cultivation of bodhicitta, there are two kinds. Aspirational cultivation of aspirational bodhicitta and engaging bodhicitta. Aspirational bodhicitta means how nice if I become Buddha for the benefit of all sentient beings. This is good, wonderful, but still you are not practicing, you are not doing anything. So next step is not only saying how nice if I become Buddha for the benefit of all sentient beings, next you have to cultivate engaging bodhicitta. That means I will not only aspire bodhicitta, but I will practice myself. I will practice the six perfections. For example, in Shantideva's Bodhicharya Avatara, the differences between these two, the aspirational bodhicitta and engaging bodhicitta, has been compared to the wish to go and the actual going. You wish to go to Meglorganj to buy something. Oh, I have to go to Meglorganj. This may be good, but if you don't go, you will never reach there just by thinking, I'll go to Meglorganj. You will not be there. So engaging bodhicitta means you need to practice. So therefore, from henceforth he speaks about the practice of the six perfections. So first he talks about practice of generosity. Those desiring enlightenment have to give up even their bodies. Hence, what need is there to talk about material wealth? So engaging in generosity without expecting any reward or return is a practice of Bodhisattva. I have explained this earlier. When you give something to others, you give it because it's important, it's beneficial. Not with expectation that one day I'll get something back. Oh, I should give this to this young man because he's very soon going to America, so he might earn some dollar and send it to me. Not this kind of expectation. Just give it. Because this is a great opportunity for you to collect merit. Therefore, many teachers, they say, I will not talk much about the benefit of giving, but I will talk about the disadvantage of holding. Hold on to, Our greedy mind needs everything. You it will take only few minutes to go back to your home and see what you have collected over the years. How many pairs of shoes you have collected, how many pairs of pants you have collected. Oh my God. I'm including myself, not saying that it's only you, And then many of these things that we have collected, like rats collecting things, unfortunately we have not even used it for the last many years. It's because of greediness that you keep on thinking that one day I will need it, one day I will need it, and you are not able to part it. You see? So it's important to start practicing a little bit. There are many who are in need of those things which you are not using. You see? Start practicing, because on the day when you die, then everything will be taken by others. That's not called giving. That's not called giving. They'll take it away because you can't use it, you see. And then also it's a reality that the more you have, the more it's inviting thieves, the more it is inviting robbers, the more it is inviting discord, fighting. Sometimes, relatives fight over the wealth left by somebody died, you see. And then also when you want to travel to some area, then it's very difficult. Oh, how can I carry all this? So it's better to lead a simple life. And that is also another point that Einstein mentions in his text somewhere. Einstein also says, I also believe that a simple and unassuming life is good for everybody, physically, mentally. You see? Simple life. And should have the capacity to share your knowledge, share your wealth. We need to learn those things. So those desiring, so I'm not going to elaborate on this. Next, practice of morality. In the essence of morality, even one's own interests will not be fulfilled. So desiring to serve others' interest is laughable. Therefore, observing moral ethics without any worldly aspiration is a bodhisattva practice. Sutim, morality. The Tibetan word sultim said, Shuddha devatim, proper way of life. Proper way of life. Unless you have morality, forget about helping others. You will not be able to help yourself. How? What is the meaning of morality? Morality means doing those things which is good for you, good for others. Morality, basically in Buddhism, morality means three things. One, restraining negative actions. Two, cultivating positive activities. Three, helping other sentient beings. So these three topics covers the whole concept of morality in Buddhism. I mean, it's amazing. So morality is not equal to discipline that is imposed upon you. Morality has, in Buddhism, has no connotation that you need to live a particular way of life because the Buddha said so, your teacher said so, not because of that. You must observe morality because it is good for you. Stop doing bad things, start doing good things, and the end purpose is help other sentient beings. That's morality. And the Sanskrit word for morality is shil. Shil, which comes from shitalta. Shil, Hindi, shitalta, shital sikjova. Shil means cool. Meaning that when you don't harm others, help others, your mind will always be cool. When your mind is cool, then you can cultivate all positive qualities like meditation, wisdom, and so forth. So therefore, morality is compared to a ground on which the animate, inanimate objects can exist. Third is practice of patience. To a bodhisattva desiring a wealth of virtues, bodhisattva is somebody who desires host of virtues. So for such a bodhisattva, all obstructive forces are similar to treasure of precious jewels. Therefore, to meditate on patience without any feeling of resentment to all is a practice of bodhisattva. So if you are a bodhisattva who desires that host of wealth of virtues, then little bit hardship, little bit of obstructive forces are bound to come. Kurdumetawa jenduta sidire. Migyu chimbo jigangla lega chingi yuna kange testene tadanga migyu de dube chedanga kange tidange dokti dawu chigi mengi jencha dawu chigi silawi yoro pabek. This is what. Because your objective is to become Buddha for the benefit of all sentient beings. So your object is so important. So because of this importance of the object, you are ready to encounter obstacles, hindrances. So Bodhisattva has this undaunted courage. Bodhisattva is a relentless fighter. And even in ordinary life, if you don't have patience, you are not going to achieve anything. And Shantideva says, look at the farmer who has to toil so hard in the heat of the sun. For example, the farmers who plant rice, they have to work in knee-deep water. Sometimes their legs are like beaten by insects and things like that. Look at the fisherman. Just to catch few fish, he has to sit near the bank of the water for the whole day. Sometimes maybe 1, 2 fish. He has to have patience. So without patience, nothing can be achieved. Fourth is effort, perseverance. Even Sarvakas and Patika Buddhas who are solely involved in their own personal interest persevere as if they were extinguishing a fire on their heads. Hence, engaging in effort, the source of virtue for the benefit of all sentient beings, is a practice of Bodhisattva. That means even those Sarvakas and Patika Buddhas whose aim is just for their own purpose, even if it is just for their own purpose, but they work so hard, they make so much effort, as if their head is on fire. As if they were extinguishing a fire on their head, meaning that if suddenly my head catches fire while I am teaching, if my head will not catch fire because there is no hair, but in case my head catches fire while I am teaching, and if you point, Geshe, your head is on fire, I'll say, okay, wait, I'll extinguish this later. First let me teach. I'll never say that. I'll immediately. So therefore, when it comes to doing this spiritual practices, don't postpone. You have to do it as soon as possible. Tomorrow or next life, which will come first, it is not sure. Tomorrow or next life, which will come first, not sure. So therefore, make more effort for future life than for tomorrow. This sangcha, this nangcha, shibe chawa mili yakbu message. I'll do this tomorrow. I'll do this, day after tomorrow. In this way, if you keep on postponing, it is not a good sign. Whether it's our official work or any work, you need to strike the iron while it is hot. Do it immediately. Then you feel encouraged. It's my own personal experience, little experience, that when you do the work at hand immediately, whether it's answering a telephone or writing a letter, that gives you more energized. But if you just keep on postponing, I'll do it tomorrow, I'll do it then you sit on your chair, oh, I have to write this letter, oh, I have to write that letter. You see? Then you get headache. So therefore, don't postpone. In Buddhism, postponement is another kind of laziness. So, according to Buddhist teaching, effort means not just working hard, but delighting in what you are doing. So, you have to delight, you have to have joy and happiness in the mind in doing virtuous practices. If you have that joy and happiness, you can easily do those things. If there is a reluctance, there is no joy, nothing will be there. Happily, this kind of meditation or loving kindness, compassion, animals can do, dogs can't do. Even among human beings, how many people have access to these things? I am lucky, I will do it, I'll do it immediately. Appreciate it. One day you will become old, your eye can't see, your ear can't hear, then even if you want to do something you can't do. So therefore His Holiness encourages young people. Your age is the best age for doing spiritual practice, for doing meditation. When you're old, you're physically, you're not strong, then it's difficult to do these practices. So right now is the time. Next is meditation on concentration. By understanding that afflictive emotions can be destroyed by by understanding that afflictive emotions can be destroyed by a special insight, thoroughly incorporating come abiding se dire da hine se someday. Special insights and wisdom. Wisdom is important, but afflictive emotions can be destroyed by wisdom that is supported by one-pointed meditation. Come abiding means one-pointed meditation. And meditating on mental stability which transcends the four formless states is a bodhisattva practice. So the target of your practice, the purpose of your practice is not only to experience some samsaric pleasure or transcend the four formless certain types of meditative states, but to get rid of negative emotions from the root and to cultivate bodhicitta and wisdom, understanding emptiness. The next is wisdom. In the absence of the perfection. Now with regard to this one-pointed meditation, which is the subject of this verse, why one-pointed meditation is important? One-pointed meditation means concentration. Without concentration, you are not going to achieve anything. Worldly practices or beyond worldly practice, religious practices or worldly practice, you are not going to achieve anything. So concentration is like a laser beam. When the rays of the laser beam are scattered, it doesn't have the power to cut through the steel. But when the rays of the laser beams are concentrated, focused, it can cut through steel. This is the example. When your mind is focused, even if you spend a little bit time, you will be able to do many things. You will be able to know many things, do many things. But if your mind is a little bit scattered, thinking 100,000 things at the same time, neither here nor there, then your life will go like that. You are not going to achieve anything. So concentration is very, very important. These days people talk so much about meditation, especially one-pointed meditation. But in the Buddhist text it says, yes, one-pointed meditation on one object is important, but the main idea of one-pointedness is you should help sentient beings one-pointedly. 심지에 된다 책을 릭버 디브니 책으로 했어. 단 인정도 와대. 최다 약부 제에 되는데 릭버 디브니 책으로 했어. 거와 문에 디레. 때는 등사 망고 책이 될라기면 도 와. 되게 미바지 샤딜라네 마요. 디어 요데 요래. 얘네들 잠종데 디 말해. 아니 그 되게 메도 샤디 짱짱 삼데네 히라히라 페면도 와. 디 타블람 책으로 와. 잠종데 디레. 타드 렙사디 야가 제일 릭버 디브투. 밀펜도 제일 릭버 디브투. So the real background idea for one-pointed concentration is not just choose one object and let your mind stay there, but the background idea is so that gradually you are able to concentrate in helping others, so that you are able to concentrate in cultivating all the virtuous practices. That is the idea. Otherwise there is not much fun, sitting there as if you are stupefied, as somebody has beaten a stick on your head, just sitting there. It's not much purpose, really. So it's important. One-pointed meditation alone, without wisdom. There's a story of one a non-Buddhist meditator by the name Udrak, Lakju sage Chungdwa. It's a very famous one-pointed meditator. And he can stay one-pointed in that state of one-pointed meditation for I don't know how long. Many days, probably months, according to the story. And it is said that he remained in that one-pointed meditation. He was enjoying, completely lost into it. And then his hairs grew so long, and it touched the ground. And there were a number of rats in his cave. So the rats, bitten off the ends of his hair, still oblivious. And when he rose from his meditation and saw that the end of his hair has been bitten off by the rats, he got mad. He got angry. So that is to show that unless you have that wisdom, understanding emptiness as an antidote to ignorance, antidote to afflictive emotions. Just one point in meditation is not the solution. That is the example. That's the example. And then some final suggestions. Unless you examine your own mistakes, that means you should always watch your mind. Always find your faults, mistakes. Because if you don't examine yourself, your mistakes, then in the guise of a religious person, you might engage in irreligious acts. Meaning that if you don't examine yourself, you are so addicted in so many bad things that unless you judge yourself, you may not know that you are making a mistake. And this is very possible, especially in the case of people with name and fame. When people are listening to them, they think, oh, I can do everything I like. You see, you are very good in teaching others, but you never examine yourself. You see. So unless you examine your own mistakes, in the guise of a religious person, you may look like a religious person, but you might engage in irreligious act. Therefore, to constantly examine your own mistakes and to abandon them, so therefore constantly judging your own mistakes and then removing them is a bodhisattva practice. Then because here we are talking about bodhisattva practices, therefore he is saying, verse number 33, due to afflictive emotions, if you highlight the faults of other bodhisattvas, you yourself will degenerate. You see, because if you are somebody who is committed to cultivating bodhicitta, then it's important to watch your mouth. Okay, watch your mouth and don't blame people, religious teachers or others, because of your liking and disliking. If you just make nasty comments, and even ordinary people. We are not sure who is who. Somebody looks like poor, uneducated, shabby, but maybe bodhisattva. We cannot know who is who, really. So therefore it's always important to try not to say bad things about other people. Because sometimes due to afflictive emotions, if you highlight the faults of other bodhisattvas, the Chinese leaders are doing this with His Holiness Dalai Lama, that he is counter-revolutionary, he is a monk in wolf's cloth and things like that, you see. So collecting a lot of negative deeds. Because if you do that, you yourself will degenerate. Therefore, not to talk about the faults of person who has entered the Mahayana path is a bodhisattva practice. The kyun ji yun kyun labda kheba laviyero. Pe magachine laviyero tinde. Ani go masun de lavna pe dukjarwa. Cho den chin lavga do things among bushuji. Then if you are a practitioner of this path, then again, like now this probably is addressed to the monks, and the monks sometimes have their benefactors, sponsors. So he is saying, due to material possessions and fame, there will be disagreement. Because we all want possessions, we all want fame, but if you really understand, then possessions and fame, they are the source of many disagreements and fights. So therefore, if you are too much attached to the benefactor or your friends and so forth, because of your attachment to possessions and fame, and then your acts of listening, contemplation and meditation will decline. As a practitioner, you need to listen, you need to think, and then you need to meditate. But if you become too obsessed with the name and fame and possession, then you will have no time for these things. You will always be running up, running down and things like that. Therefore, to abandon attachment to the homes of friends, Rawa, Tokboda, Jinda Duzan, Chigra, you some deal core days yorwa. Tangazu Yore, Jinda do Sidipet, Chiega Dogache, Chara Chiega Dogache, Gungana Chiega Dogache. That's Hiyorita. That in the Chimachina, Jinda Ragamudo Karcho. Young Moshim Mambu lost the Chimachinchi. It's a bodhisattva practice. Right? It's just by chance become a bodhisattva practice. Then watch your mouth. harsh words disturb others' mind, and your bodhisattva way of life will decline. So to abandon harsh words which are unpleasant to others is a bodhisattva practice. Tamla nongar meja meaning tumburtup silavre. The words we speak do not have sharpness like a blade, but they can chop other people's heart into pieces. So therefore in the Buddhist teaching it says your speech should, if possible, like honey. If not possible, at least like a flower, not like a filth. Sokparo dinde, kani tense. Mil go na chuge, mil poge. Tende chanta shige yungudo gashi nyingje. Kani temba da lamsa mil koye chanja labge dinde. Tende shijuyo maras. An English saying says that a tongue which is 6-7 inches long can fail a person 6-7 feet tall. Same, the idea is same. And then the most important thing, the next one says, the most important thing, as I repeatedly said, the most important thing for a practitioner is to constantly fight against the invasion of the afflictive emotions. The nyomo singe de pe go devore do. Samsam docha ji, samsam khungdo se, diamond te khai, jabu chena ata, tsubu chena ata chungu do. Rwa ta chena so chunju lo na rwa. Ta nyomo de thakur record chene yung di khapde thakur record chene khandas cha go men din hi re do. Hal na ye ko re do. So therefore this what I was saying was this negative emotions, they are very opportunistic, very cunning. They'll come in 100,000 ways. Sometimes attachment, very gentle. Sometimes anger, very aggressive, you see. Very opportunistic. So if you let yourself get addicted, habituated with these negative emotions, so what he says is, when accustomed or habituated to afflict emotions, it will be difficult to stop them through antidotes. 당번에 sabzab chegodes. Ko nyomong go bur chewade tak shuni mar se or chewade. Dina sig yak bojor de peyinala duwa. Kawado de peyinala yorde. De nyomo komna nyembe dogabe tenshi kibu nyembe sonson chaso nyangmo nyomo tangbo chemata burjom chewa go bur chedi jom. Tangado jungwa ngade pyoge jang gala janginda nangju. Chanaso loshomos tanayina pe yakbu yungsare de. Pyoge yergeru ro, sangwa yergeru ro. 당에서는 장식마다 지단에 시간이나 배인의 장에 고여서로 그러와 So when accustomed to afflict emotions, it will be difficult to stop them through antidotes. Therefore the person of mindfulness vigilance, by wielding the weapons of antidotes, should immediately destroy the afflicting emotions such as attachment as soon as they pop up. This is the practice of Bodhisattva. And then, when we talk about Bodhisattva practice, we are primarily talking about always trying to benefit others. So he summarizes the point by saying, in short, whatever you do, office work, teaching work, whatever work, social services, whatever you do, in whatever place, America, China, Tibet, home, outside home, whatever, in whatever place, asking, what is the state of my mind? What is the motivation of my mind? Check your mind. And always fulfilling the interests of others with mindfulness and vigilance. Is this helpful? Be mindful and vigilant. Is this good for others? Just as you think that is this good for me, similarly now you think more about others. Is this good for others? So with this kind of mind, if you continue to do all kind of work, then it's a Bodhisattva practice. Next, the final is dedication. It's the practice of Bodhisattva to dedicate the virtues accomplished in this way to dispel the sufferings of infinite sentient beings with the wisdom which is free of the three cycles. Which is free of three cycles means the three cycles are the doer, the deed, and the object. All these three have no inherent independent existence. Free of the three cycles. The doer, its action, and the object. None of this has inherent independent existence. So in other words, even in the case of your having done some virtuous practices, do not develop grasping. Yang di che sigrawal chur de chen tring the garo che samne yang nge che yo sen ya gewa che jo de ya dematru jin sigrawa odit jin yo manes. Chona milam tabur sam se dire. Rwa adu che res. Khandar, even those virtuous practices that you have done, at the end of the day, you dedicate it for the benefit of other sentient beings. No clinging, no grasping. This one? Kama kashi duwe. Kama chongas duwe. So, I finished reading it. Any questions? So in short, you understood the meaning of bodhicitta, a wish to become Buddha for the benefit of all sentient beings. In order to cultivate bodhicitta, you need to cultivate compassion and loving kindness. Bodhicitta represents the heart, and it must be supported by the head, which is wisdom, understanding, emptiness. So emptiness means empty of things exist, do not exist independently. Therefore, emptiness means not nothingness, but empty of empty of empty of independent existence. So what we are saying is, when we say things exist, which we all agreed, things exist. When things exist, there are only two ways of existence, only two possibilities. One existing dependently, two existing independently. So which one you think is true? Existing independently or dependently? Dependently. Exactly. Now dependent existence, independent existence, they are mutually exclusive. Like two sworn enemies. There cannot be a third possibility. It has to be one of them. So now you said things exist dependently. Therefore, there is no independent existence. So this non-existence of independent existence is called this non-existence of independent existence is called emptiness. Emptiness means empty of independent existence. Empty means non-existence of independent existence. Is it very clear? Things exist, do not exist independently. So the lack of independent existence is called emptiness. Yes, sir. The benefit of understanding Bodhicitta is easy to understand. The question is whether we will be able to develop it or not. It's a different thing, but we can all appreciate, yes, it's a mind wishing to become Buddha for the benefit of all sentient. So it's very clear. Now the question arises with regard to wisdom, understanding, emptiness. Why this is important? This is important because we suffer due to ignorance. Ignorance. Now ignorance means mind which sees things having independent existence. This one. Mind which sees things having independent existence. So when we develop this wisdom which sees things having no inherent existence, this mind acts as a counter force against that ignorant mind which sees things as having inherent existence. So once we are able to see things having no independent existence, and when we are able to see things are interconnected, interrelated, then we are able to appreciate the cause-effect relationship. Then we are able to connect ourselves to other people. Then we are able to see our connection to the environment. We are able to see our responsibility. Because we are, these days in the internet age we use the word interface, internet, network. Net. The Buddhist concept is taught in the internet age. Internet, interface, wave, network. And contrarily, if you see things as having independent existence, then if it is beautiful all the time, it will never change. If it is beautiful today and has independent existence, then it will remain like that for ages to come, for centuries to come. It will never change, because that beauty is having objective independent existence. But we will never find one like that in the whole world, because we have all seen that things come and then they decay and fall, however glorious, good things are. So things change. Whether it's ugly or beautiful, things change, clearly showing they are dependent on multiplicity of causes and conditions and factors. So similarly, in our own pursuit of happiness also, once you realize that my happiness has to come by depending on many other people, has to depend on causes and conditions, has to depend on my own mental attitude, then you will be more responsible. See? Right? So that's why these days I use the word finding happiness in an uncertain world, impermanent world. Things are changing, things are in a flux. So within that, you need to know the law of change, law of impermanence, and then accordingly live. Now once you understand the law of impermanence, for example, a very vivid example that I can give is, once you understand the law of impermanence, then you should be able to understand that we are all going to die. If you are somebody who really has this understanding that we are all going to die, naturally you will develop some feeling of compassion and love. This young lady, nice looking young lady is going to die. This nice looking young man is going to die. So I wish them really they have nice life. You see, it will automatically come. There's the Takwachir Singmedaya. Kakurwada. In a Samlochi town, the Ning the Jigrwata Yingji. Samara Jungurwata. Yungre Yungsarava. Nenam Kipe de Higio. Midden Kuma Zabjin Missum, Najin criminal, Missum de Juni Chayuna. The Konduchuzuasela say Nasoto Daina. The Chuzukashi to Demdoa. Chuzu Kashi Madonyam to Deme with the couple of Missum de Pintuchi, Shuretan, Zinjira Candido. Not to pay the Simchunga in the Mijuta in Yagayore. Ding it in the Candinas. Chuzu Sumishin Higre, Tanda Chichil, Tuzutan, Jagre Jabchi to some girl. The Hakudang. Not to mean nothing from the Chikwarese. Go to Chuzu Sumikij, not to Kaseor, not to Lokashi Teva Day. That consummation on the Jagre to on the Chodu. That a kind of classic example that I give is, if let us say there are 3 criminals here who are caught and who are to be killed, executed tonight, say at 10 p.m. Then within this given time, how should they live? Bullying each other, exploiting each other, try to kill each other? If they do this, then those of us who are witnessing that might be shocked to death. How come these 3 criminals, they are going to die in the next 3 hours, 3-4 hours, but still they are so mean, so negative. Their heart must be made of stone or iron or diamond, And then the Buddhist teaching says, we are not so different from these 3 criminals. They are going to be killed after 3-4 hours, we are going to be killed after Sometimes I jokingly say, even if I give you a big discount, we'll all be killed after big discount, right? So we'll all be gone after 90 years, after giving a big discount. Because you have now the timeline is clear. So once you understand this fragility, this truth of the death and so forth, it is but natural, one, to live your life harmoniously, happily, enjoy each and every moment. Now enjoy means not in a stupid sense, without harming others. Be happy. Be happy. Appreciate the good things that you have. And then more importantly, death after 90 years doesn't mean that you will completely vanish into the thin air. The mind will continue, there is future life, so prepare accordingly. You see? So there are a lot of things you can do. And imagine if we are able to live that kind of life, there will be happiness everywhere. There will be happiness. Each and every day you will pass like this. When you are happy, time passes like this. When you are unhappy, even few minutes, it's very, very difficult to pass these few minutes. The dua, midaba se tegas hinalai ke jare dua. Ku jumze dua di. Midaba in Quran ku hidoge rahin chigla nova kharchin che gore. Quran dunge rahin yu denge jela dunge khandres thoba te gore. Kharchubdu ge ning je rokpa chen kibu chen dogre samarachi. Tusing rajana chi jaso ge lab chibu hiu je tusing rajana chimba ina. Ta medeso tangbo khasang dung namdu dung khie so dina ki tusing da gore. Tangbo de lakwa mewa je so din chambo je do de na hirara geshe ma khie do chi re. Ina lakwa de se jab tusing de go tu jo lok ro che na. Lamsa ke je chambo re je chag do. Odi dunge thong yung de ta chambo che go de khor khata yu. 남지 가지 인동도 거지 인동도 지금 푸셔링 거래 팬이요 말 어디 팬기도 하셔도 팬다래 디마도 대가선 some people say Buddhism is a pessimistic religion. No, it's a realistic religion. It talks both about suffering and its causes and the possibility to remove the causes of suffering, and it talks about happiness and the possibility to cultivate that cause of happiness and have happiness. So it's a realistic religion. And in fact, the Buddhist teaching says, if you understand the sum totality of everything, the entire picture, then you will know how to plan properly. So these days I am trying my best to explain Buddhism in such a way that Buddhism makes sense into this world. Nyinge yone shos madu watini miksumne cha chede kharje kharre labdu khanga me bache arwa susul phendo yo da hakone diji tenji diji gu yo ne ngzu lab sare da tha che sare signature jab sare ta tenji diji gu yo se de ne yungu marwa ngana ngzu phebe thanda ina phaba chi gu yo se lam Gugu silab samadu de den lega sugama jan yungu marwa lega chego kale chego odina hire do arwa tang do nyae mang che ki deji duwe ke thablam thama go che and thanda me nyang do nge thajila we are suffering unnecessarily. With little bit of awakening, little bit of knowledge, there will be huge transformation, huge happiness in one's life. And we have this stupid tendency to just keep on complaining. I don't have this, I don't have that, the grass is greener on the other side. Never contented, Always saying more, or jagar ke lagdo, or lao, khaye, So there should be some satisfaction. Enough is enough. And then for young people it's important. Some people, because of misconception, they say, oh, it is because of Buddhism that Tibet lost its country. This question was asked to me when I was giving some His Holiness the Dalai Lama gave Kala Chakra in Mongolia. So after Kala Chakra, His Holiness said, you should stay with some other Rinpoche and go around and give talks in the universities. So I gave a talk in one of the Mongolian university, and one young person, he got up and young student, he got up and said, don't you think but both Mongolia and Tibet lost their country because of Buddhism? People think like that. Then I asked him in return, what about those countries who lost their country but don't practice Buddhism? I mean, these are like short-sighted questions, you see. But at the same time, it's important. It's important to know how Buddhism is good not only for your personal health and also for your wealth, also for the wealth of the country, the material development of the country. If you sincerely practice many of these Buddhist teachings, there will be no corruption. You see? There will be more taking care of the need of poor people. There will be more sense of responsibility and dedication. And I believe that Central Tibetan administration, despite our, shortcomings of facilities and things like that as refuge, but because of His Holiness guidance, because of Buddhism, comparatively very successful. Because of that, imagine if the people who are working here are corrupt. The whole administration go down the hill in few days. Lungpa chenpo tu soya pe lamsa sakru da, corruption da, kongen da, kyak zun chan da, chapsi pa tu so te da, da nga zu chimzang da, kawai na te da. Manduwa. Du so sangma, te tang jo tarwa tamje chenpa chikko sego marda. Chamdu yungye da sangma, xewo pengero wa penda. Chanda chadang ha gona ya goyor. Tengsa chiji da samlo yungye dende ke nangchu le ing xiu, ene khunzu ke pede chizo ke yarje da kawai na nangchu pengi yo wa dende te mangu tido wa. Dende lo na samsam. Right? Thank you. Good night.